Try to be jack of all trades could be detrimental, especially in the assessment of success, because you're never going deep enough. You're probably lacking follow through, and you're probably making mistakes.
Meet Luigi Caceres, the innovative co-founder of Heaver Capital. He transforms Amazon businesses into profitable ventures with his expertise in e-commerce strategy and optimization.
Division of labor is hard to let go sometimes as an entrepreneur, and you tend to believe that you're going to be doing a better job than either an employee or a staff collaborator. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. It takes some practice. We're wired as humans to think of, okay, I have a problem, how do I solve this? And you should ask yourself, who can help me solve this?
At what stage do you recommend that somebody actually starts hiring salespeople to take over things? Is there a certain price point? Is there a certain milestones they should have passed?
For me, the key element is always
the Content Capitalist Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. Today I've got a guest with me, and he's not just a guest, but he's also was a client in my coaching program, in my agency, and now he's pivoting to a new direction. But while we were going through this pivot point and having some conversations, I said, Luigi, you've got so much experience and so much to share. I got to get you on the podcast before your next venture takes you to the moon, and I can't catch up with you anymore. You're so popular. Like, I don't have time for Ken's podcast. So I was like, I got to grab him. So thank you, Luigi, so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Ken, always a pleasure to be around you and have a good chat, man.
Absolutely. So Luigi, right now you are in South America. And I know that you do travel quite a bit. And when we're chatting, like, I'm in this country, I'm in this country. But could you give us kind of a 30,000 foot view, like the elevator pitch? What do you do and who do you help?
Sure. I have a sales consultancy company now, and I help mostly offers now that are related to investments and investment vehicles for the average investor.
Okay. Now, I think that for some people who heard that, they're just like, what does that mean? So we're going to unpack that in a minute. But one thing I do know is that in entrepreneurship, we wear like a ton of hats, right? Where they're trying to figure out some technology, where they're trying to, put out fires with team issues, client issues. And there's so many things that are going on. But the one thing that's going to be a complete non-starter, like in other words, you won't even get to stage one if you don't learn this skill to some degree, is sales. And that is something that if you have that skill, I believe you're going to be able to start a business in almost any category, because then you can bring on other experts. So that's why I'm so interested in having this conversation with you. Not necessarily so much about content, but you're the first person I'm bringing on who really has that primal focus, or at least the primal skill in sales. So thank you for taking time to come on the show.
100%. And yeah, just like you said, we're always selling something, even to our family members, to our spouses, to our kids. The notion of selling is everywhere. And the more natural and casual you can be around it, the better you're going to just do in life in general. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that, this was a few years ago, I read a book, Grant Cardone, Sell or Be Sold. And one of the things that really stuck with me that he put in there is the number one person you got to sell is yourself. And I never thought of it that way, but you got to sell yourself. As an entrepreneur, I got to sell myself on this business is going to work. And I am going to accept this money because I will get this client a result, or whatever that's going to be for you. But before we jump into sales tactics or what's currently going on in your business, let's go backwards to before you're an entrepreneur. What were you doing, and the journey between that to where you are now?
Yeah, 100%. And before I forget, because what you just mentioned, it's super important. I just heard, I think it was Ed Milet, since you mentioned, selling yourself on something, right? I think he mentioned that when you're in a sales process or talking to a prospect or selling something, you're not actually, or you're more effective if you can sell them on the idea of how excited you are about what you are selling, versus not how excited you are about the product, but no, how excited you are. And it kind of goes in line with what you just said. So I didn't want to miss that opportunity.
But that right there is gold. I think you just dropped a bomb there that I think that's a whole next level. It's true. Like the people who are so excited about the thing. Yeah, you're so right. You remember the ShamWow guy? You know, like that guy was so excited about a rag that could soak up water. And then he did the slap chop, right? The same guy. Like that guy was just excited, man. And those things made millions of dollars.
Yeah. And the first time I heard that, I kind of reflected on my own style when I'm doing sales. And I realized that I'm always most effective when first of all, I'm sold myself on whatever I'm selling. But because, you know, the more natural you can be about that excitement on whatever you're selling, it just comes across. There's that unspoken language in conversations that just happen, and that level of trust, right?
Is more than spoken.
Yeah. But sorry, you were asking about my background. I think I just
yes. But
diverged.
You just brought up another memory, and then we'll get into that because now you're getting me excited about stuff. I remember when I got my first Mac, and I know that you're not necessarily a Mac guy because you don't have an iPhone, but because we had this conversation before, no problem. But I remember when I first, switched from PC to Mac, and this must have been like 2007 or something, when the iMacs were still quite new, or 2006 maybe. And I really had that experience where I didn't realize that using a computer could be would feel so good. Like, because I was a video editor even on PCs before. And I got so excited about it. I was like so excited. And I started telling my family, my friends, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And nobody was using Mac in my friends group. And over the next few years, everybody is using a Mac. They're all just like, yeah, it's because you suggested it. I'm just like, I should be getting commissions for this. And like, I was not making any money from it. I wasn't even thinking about making money. But every time I saw someone using a PC to do anything that I knew would be easier on a Mac, it'd be like nails on a chalkboard. I'm like, I can't believe you're still using that. Like, look at this. Without any ulterior motive, then I think their life would be better using the solution that I've got instead of what they're using. So you just brought back that memory to me, and I got teased so hard. But I didn't care. I'm just like, tease me all you want. This is the better solution. It just is, And then I guess I'm probably one of those people that that term, Apple fanboy came from. I'm one of those guys. But it got me very excited when I discovered a different way to do things. So I'm done with my backstory. This is about you. Let's hear the elevator pitch.
Sure. Well, I mean, a little bit of background, right? How I ended up doing what I'm doing. It started, I was born in Asunción, Paraguay. My wife is from Buenos Aires, Argentina. So we spend a lot of time here in South America. My businesses are established in the U.S., in Miami mostly, because it's easier to get from here. And I kind of had this dual lifestyle of, living north and south. I went to business school. Well, first of all, if I rewind a little, even, further back, I went to school to a university here in Paraguay, a business school, worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. Not sure if you remember that firm. It's mostly consulting, finance. It was a little boring, but then, I kept pursuing that corporate. In those days, it was still fashionable to have a corporate job. This was like more than 25 years ago. So I went to business school, did an MBA in the States. This was 2001 to 2003. None of which is actually helpful in current. I'm not going to say no. I'm going to be fair, but a lot of that is not, helpful anymore because of this online world. Online world that we live. So it was a lot of money. I did get a scholarship, so I'm very grateful about my experience there. I think the fundamentals are always still there, though. But anyway, that's another story. But I came back after that to South America. I joined a company in the event space. Restaurants, bars. It was all brick and mortar. It was more fun. So I kind of left all that corporate world. And we got hit severely in COVID after 15 years of running that one. It was very successful. It was fun. It was a good lifestyle. So I kind of enjoyed. But it's like, I think you probably heard Warren Buffett said once, when the tide goes out, you can see who was swimming naked, right? And that was probably us. We weren't ready for such a catastrophe, I guess. And, with the pandemic, and we weren't hedged enough on, online tools and being in the online space. We were zero there. So, of course, that was devastating. We went belly up, and I had to start from scratch at a very old age. And I said, okay, this could be an opportunity for me to do something that I always wanted to, which is get involved in the online space. I mean, I'm seeing all these things. I'm getting exposed to Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels, and all that. Like, I have no idea where to start. It's this vast space to explore, and I say, okay, I have to start somewhere. And of course, this pandemic, we're locked down, and we could just use computers and have Zoom with people. And remember, this is also South America. So, long story short, one of the things I got exposed by, getting to that rabbit hole is the world of high ticket sales, which in Latin America, I'm not sure if in Japan people know about it, but in Latin America, for sure, nobody knows what it is. Some people in the States, even now, I realize that a lot of people don't know what it is, but I didn't know it was a thing and that you could actually make money and say, okay, this could be a good start. If I'm starting from scratch, I try to get into a vehicle that will allow me to make a good living and probably evolve. So again, long story short, that led me to some very good opportunities. I joined sales organizations, Sales Sniper, you probably remember them, and I think that's how we met in the first place. And from there, I just since I was more experienced, I think, as a business person, and then again, the sales aspect of things, and the methods and the frameworks are always important, but it all comes down to who you are. What do you bring as a person, as a professional? Because it comes out in conversations, right? So when a prospect is looking to buy something from you, first thing, there's again that unspoken word and that language that is not really said in the conversation, but it comes across through body language, through through you as a person, right? And how reliable and trustworthy you are. So again, that's how I ended up doing most offers based on investments and some e-commerce offers, some syndications, cash flowing assets that investor would buy to get some recurring either passive income or an asset appreciation element. And I kind of focus on that, right? So this is what I do at the moment. And to solve, the main point I'm still looking to solve is investments. Investment is a tough game. It's a tough topic. I know there's myriads of books and ways to approach it. And it's kind of reserved for a special club of the wealthy, right? Okay, are you an ultra high net worth individual and you have access to these large hedge funds that always have the edge on what to invest in? And I think, now these online tools have kind of democratized access to more and more vehicles, I would say. So I like to see myself as a curator of these opportunities. And hopefully when I find them, I try to be very diligent about who's selling what and be compliant. But, once I go through that phase, present these opportunities to even, I always start with myself. I always put my mind where my mouth is. So I try to experience the investment myself firsthand. And yeah, that's what I'm focusing on now. And hopefully that answers that initial question.
Thank you so much. There's the term high ticket sales. I think that gets thrown around quite a bit, and it might be different things to different people. And for, let's just say, somebody who's in a regular corporate job, high ticket might feel like, $10,000 or maybe even $5,000. And for somebody who owns several businesses, it might be $1 million or $2 million. And I do know some mentors who have communities who actually charge $1 million per year for membership. So, what are we talking about when you say high ticket? What does that mean to you?
Right. That's a very good question, because the definition of it, well, I'm not sure if there's a cut-off definition for the actual number, but it started with the concept of how we behave online, right? And so we're buying a $20 trinket or $100 or $500 or $900 even mentoring or course or something. We're willing to put it on a credit card. When it's beyond that, then you probably want to talk to someone. So it could be anywhere from 2 to 5 to 10K to get started with. I'm focused more on the 50 to 100, to get started. And we've done a few $500,000 or $1 million, tickets as well. But yeah, the proper definition would be a sales process that needs a human being to actually be able to do that sale. I know people who sell very high ticket items without a call. That's because they're massive presence and online, and there's certain elements, but that's kind of the definition, if that makes sense.
So I guess what we're talking about here is more the method of the sale, less than like the price of the sale. Is that
right? Well, yeah. If you want to go to the strict definition of high ticket sales, but then there's different, and that's why we try to see ourselves as more of a boutique consultancy, because we specialize in more of that upper, higher ticket offers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring that up because let's take it back to the car industry, right? It was almost impossible before to buy a car, or very difficult, without talking to a sales guy. And you just never know what kind of tricks they're pulling up their sleeve, or, if what they're saying is really, the best price. And then Tesla comes along and says, hey, you could order it just like you order something on Amazon, click, 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 and you're out. And people are dropping anywhere from I think their cheapest model is like 39,000 all the way up to like 120,000 with the spec'd out, top range models. So, actually they have the $220,000, the Roadster too, which you can pre-order now. So, and then they just deliver it to your door. So yeah, I guess it's less about the price point now because there's so much available, and more about that, like, is it important to have the human conversation or not? So thank you for that perspective. I didn't think of it that way before. So right now you're a business owner and you've worked in several industries. And right now you're in that space where you're growing your business that's got to do with investments and things like that. And we can take this conversation two ways. I'm okay with either. I think that a lot of people, including myself listening, are really interested in knowing, like, hey, what are the mistakes people are making and how can we have a better sales process when we have calls? And then there will be people who are interested in, like, hey, what's it actually like scaling these kind of businesses that you're in? I'll let you choose what direction you want to take this.
Oh boy, it could be a lengthy one, depending on the approach, right? I think from a sales perspective and from the process perspective, one thing I've noticed that, there are so many frameworks and styles and methods of selling that you can follow.
Let's just talk about you, because
sure,
you're boots on the ground, cash in hand kind of guy.
Yeah. Since you mentioned what are the most frequent mistakes, I think that's how you phrase it, right? What are the challenges in the space? I think, first of all, and this is why I was going with the methods of sales. People get too hung up, I think, on each particular one, and forgetting sometimes the actual objective or outcome that they're looking for, which is a real live communication with another human being, right? And a candid one, hopefully, right? And I think that's something that gets lost in the game of sales. And there's pressures and quotas, and there's all sorts of challenges in that sense. But I think in the long run, what really separates yourself as a professional or your company is, first of all, the integrity of selling something you believe in. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? And this is my style, since you mentioned how do I feel about that? I usually have to, first of all, be sold myself on the actual thing, and then also probably have tried it myself, actually have skin in the game. I don't know, that's my style. But usually it's easy to talk the talk, but I always say, you show your real commitment when the check is made, when the check is signed, right? And then again, during the sales process, just getting hung up on the technicalities. And there could be, I don't know, Jordan Belfort, straight line, or NEPQ, or consultative selling. And they're all based on the similar fundamentals with different tweaks and here and there. But if you try to emulate, or most of them usually talk about either tonality or body language or this type of script, or follow this, or don't forget to ask this. And if you get too hung up or too scripted, you end up sounding robotic and not authentic. So for me, the key element is always, try to be authentic and convey that trust to the prospect, because you already won half of that if you can, pull that off, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's throw an example in, just so we could put some skin on this. I'm thinking that you're selling a training course for an executive MBA position to work at, let's say, Apple, right? So not MBA, sorry. Let's say Apple has certified, a program to train executives to work at Apple. And this is going to cost them $200,000 up front. So if you're going to sell that, do you think you'd have to go through the whole course itself to believe in it enough? Or sometimes that's just not practical. So how would you do that?
Right. And in the case of a course, you're right. I mean, that will probably be impractical. You already know by looking at the curriculum, by checking who are the coaches, what are the outcomes, what are their previous experiences. So in that example, you probably have the right credentials already. But ultimately, it's also, does that fit the prospect that you're actually talking to that moment, right? I've had several instances that the product was right, but not right for that specific prospect, in their current condition. That's why, and I think most methods will stress or place a lot of emphasis in asking questions. So some people actually, and when you're doing call reviews and recordings, some coaches actually measure how much of that call were you as a sales guy were talking versus the prospect. And if you're talking more than the prospect, that's probably a bad outcome, right? But it's very important, because then you will see, and this happened to me several times. There's a prospect comes to the call with certain expectations. Sometimes in marketing, of course, sells a dream or a notion that sometimes, it can be achieved, but sometimes for certain people or certain conditions or certain working capital, even beyond the initial setup fee or whatever they have to pay. So I've had moments where I had to tell the prospect, this is not for you. I know, and they really wanted it, and they were going to go into debt for it. And but I could see the stress they were going to have if they went through, credit, or they'll be in financial trouble. And I'd rather sleep well at night, man. So it's a long-term game. So I'd rather lose a sale, but just be comfortable with, knowing that I'm doing the right thing for that prospect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've had the experience where I've brought on a sales agency and also like freelance salespeople, and there's a couple issues happen. Number one, they are better at selling themselves to me than at selling my service or product to the client or prospects, right? Second thing is they don't know the product as well as I do, obviously. And sometimes salespeople tend to get really excited, and they're willing to stretch the truth or like embellish the promises. And then I'm stuck with a mismatch between the promise and the expectation and the delivery, right? Reality. Now, I don't think that that's an isolated problem, just, in my experience, but when you see that, how do you deal with that? Or have you seen that before?
For sure. All the time. And it's very complicated if you're selling like a done for you service or a biz op type of deal, because then the fulfillment needs to be on point. Otherwise, there's going to be trouble in the long run, right? So, and then I see exactly what you're saying, because then the sales guy is, of course, driven by a commission-only role, and he's very incentivized to make the sale. It's just monitoring the sales team all the time, watching call recordings and see what's going on, having that very close communication with the team. And with the team, the sales team, the onboarding team. The onboarding team has to, again, reassure that what was said in sales calls actually match the actual expectations, make sure they have the proper materials before actually getting started. I mean, there's a lot of ways to approach it, but it boils down to, that very close communication with the entire team, fulfillment, operations, onboarding, the actual owner. And eventually you just, polish those aspects. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like what you're explaining here is that there needs to be quite a structure around making sure that everything is working. Like when you hire a salesperson, it's not just hiring a salesperson. It's also being committed to watch the recordings. It's also being committed to coordinate and have additional meetings with the ops person who's got to deliver, and there's compliance issues too, right? What things they can say and can't say on the calls. So looking at it this way, maybe the issue was actually my problem, because I didn't put all these structures in place, and therefore I wasn't monitoring it as just like what you described, and that's why those things happened. So I thought the buck was in their hands, and now I'm just like, nope, here's how it should have happened. So maybe it was too early a stage for me, but at what stage do you recommend that somebody actually starts hiring salespeople to take over those things? Is there a certain price point? Is there a number of team? Is there certain milestones they should have passed?
Yeah, that's a good one. And like like everything, it depends, right? Not only on price point, but on the stability of the brand, stability of lead flow. Remember, most of them, especially good reps, I don't have anything against people who want a base, but if you're an ambitious salesperson, you prefer not to have a base, but have more aggressive commission structure, right? So, but for that to work, you need enough, lead volume and sales. So you need consistency of marketing for the, lead volume to not drop, and then a consistent offer as well, so that it doesn't die 3 or 4 months. And again, it's very natural, and that's why the high ticket space is very convoluted, and it's challenging for sales reps to have a stable career path, I guess, unless they're working with reputable guys like you and some stable offers. Then it becomes challenging, right? So I would to say it's more about the how established your brand is and your offer actually, and how much reliability you have on that flow for to be able to feed your closers. And back to the element of monitoring, is not only about controlling the environment or just supervising what they're saying. It's actually nurturing them as well. They're, remember, part of your team, and if they're good, they're going to be your best allies, right? I was watching a Hormozy video yesterday. I think he dropped it a few days ago, but he said, if you're bringing money and sales to the company, you should get a disproportionate amount of revenue, right? Because it really is the lifeblood of any business, right? So a lot of owners or influencers forget about the importance of driving revenue to the company. Right. So when I was talking about call reviews, and it's also called, it's training. It's seeing if everything, if their career path is aligned, if they're properly incentivized, because that will reduce churn and rotation. You don't want that either, because you're losing a lot of money in training and things of that nature. Right. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you. Would you be okay if we go into a bit of like, your experience in learning sales? Anything that happened that was a turning point that like really clicked? Like maybe it was a certain person who you started learning from. Maybe it was a certain experience where you made a very big commission or got the job that you wanted, or you quit something for some reason. Any turning points like that you could share with us?
There's probably different stages. I think that one of the main ones was I didn't even know, again, the notion of, or the concept of high ticket sales as a discipline of, or a line of work, which I think is great that it happens, because then you can have common languages to train a team. And when I say these frameworks, right, like NEPQ, direct, straight line or whatever, it's a more organized way to conduct sales. In my background in Latin America, I was doing sales. Without even knowing, my whole life was doing sales for my own company, even expansion projects. So in the latter years, I did a major fundraising round for my companies. And I think that was a huge learning point, because it was so successful on the fundraising aspect. And then I made a huge mistake of getting involved in the implementation and the operation, right? And I think that's what I think I like a lot, and I think it's very effective, at least in the US market, that division of labor, if you will, that, okay, the sales team is a sales team and the fulfillment team is a fulfillment team, right? And then, of course, upper management should be in charge of everything, but I think we're trying to be jack of all trades, at least here in this part of the world, and that could be detrimental, and especially in the assessment of success, right? Because then you, again, trying to be jack of all trades, you're never going deep enough, and you're going, just wide, but you're probably lacking follow through, and you're probably making mistakes. I was getting involved. I run restaurants and bars sometimes, and I would go into the kitchen, and since I was a boss, I was giving out directions of things I shouldn't have, right? And I think that for me was a very enlightening moment. And I still, to this day, sometimes I want to get more involved than I should in certain aspects. And I'm trying to stick to my lane, if that answers that question. Not sure if it does, but
it really does. It really does. I think that the thing that got you where you are is not the thing that's going to get you to the next level. Like when you're a startup entrepreneur, then you literally have to do everything. And the willingness and the ability and the initiative to do everything needed to get this thing off the ground is what got you where you are or we're at that stage. But to get to the next level, you just got to hire good people, train them well, and then let them do their thing, whether or not you think you could do a better job. And I'm not saying anything new here. This is not new advice. I think a lot of people have said this, but when you're experiencing it, it's a different story. It's just like, no, that's not. And then it's like, no, I got to let them make a mistake, even though it's going to hurt my business a little bit. Short term, long term, like they're just always going to be afraid that they're going to do something wrong because you're going to keep, butting in there and telling them what to do instead, right?
Yeah. And, I recently came across with that book, Who Not How. You probably read it or heard about it. Are you familiar with it? Yeah. Yeah. Is it Dan Sullivan, I think, as well? Is it? Well, yeah, I think it is. But, it's hard to let go sometimes as an entrepreneur, right? And you tend to believe that you're going to be doing a better job than either an employee or a staff collaborator. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes as an entrepreneur. And the more you practice that, it takes some practice even, right? You let go. Okay, hi. So I'm constantly working on that. Okay, I have a problem. We're wired as humans to think of, okay, I have a problem. How do I solve this? And of course, that book says, okay, you should ask yourself, who can help me solve this, right? And it's a big turning point. I made my best hires and my best, growth decisions when I took that into consideration. And I was going again to make that same mistake of getting involved in things or trying to solve things myself, where I could just have somebody whose 10,000 hours can you borrow or buy or steal or whatever, right? And it comes down to that.
I had an experience where I started in the film industry, making documentaries and holding the camera. I know enough about cameras that probably more than anyone on my team. And then that goes into editing and post-production, color grading, sound design, everything. And it took a long time, but I was okay with my videos edits being 80% as good as I could do it, and 80% the efficiency of, of the speed of getting it done. But after about 4 years, I have editors on my team who are better than me. I look at the stuff they do and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's like, now I need to learn from them if I want to do this again. But there was a big time lag and I just had to trust the process. When it comes to sales, do you think that this CEO, the person or the founder of the business, is the best salesperson in most cases? Or do you think there's situations where seriously from the beginning, they shouldn't be in sales, even though they're, literally the person who started the company and who knows more about it than anybody else?
There's both. I've seen owners that are great at sales, and I've seen some of them that shouldn't take a single call because they're killing their own product, right? So, and it comes down to not only lack of skills or personality. They know a ton about what they're doing, but sometimes that goes against them because then you're going to the weeds and the technical, especially if it's a technical product, you're going to too much detail that the prospect gets overwhelmed. Analysis paralysis, right? They can make a decision because you get so much, and I've seen this so many times, right? So it's better for them to step away. So it depends on that specific role. But yeah, what I can say about that in favor of them not doing them, it's just probably not a good use of our time anyway, right? And that's why I loved when I started watching your content. One of the main drivers that compelled me to start doing something, whatever we ended up doing, create content or something, is the most effective way you're already selling, but exponentially, right? So my time now, if I do, and I still do sometimes take calls, but it's that one time, that one prospect, and it's not scalable, right? So if you can translate that somehow effectively through content and reach the masses, you're reaching nirvana, right? So that same concept applies to the owner that doesn't want to give up sales calls because he's better than, and maybe he is, but that doesn't justify him spending his time on that.
Yeah, thank you. And it really is true. I think that the main thing we try to do in our content nowadays is do objection handling, but in public, so that the selling in private becomes easier. And the thing is, when you do objection handling in public, then people actually really resound with that when you do it well. they're just like, oh, I get it. And hopefully if they've already been watching your stuff, then by the time you have that sales conversation, there's just not many more objections. It's just a logistical thing from there. It's like, okay, where do I pay? When does it start? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask you some personal advice for myself?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't take very many sales calls. And, the coaching program you're in, that's on pause right now. And I may actually retire it because I need to put all my focus into the my GoBox studio and making sure the agency is working well. And typically my clients, they stick around for a really long time. I just calculated recently my average LTV, lifetime value, and it's $380,000 per client, average for agency clients. Now, if I look at all sales across the board, it's $90,000 because I'm including like $1,000 consulting things, $500 books. No, sorry, not books, courses, $27 books. But if you average all of those, including my agency clients, it's $90,000. It's good retention. So I'm in this place where I'm kind of comfortable. So I'm not really pushing marketing. And also because I don't really feel comfortable on sales calls, if I'm really honest with myself. So, and I came to this with a couple questions that maybe you could help me out with. One is that I think that I work too hard on gaining rapport with the prospect. And like, I'm a mirror type of person, looking for sameness. That's my personality. I want to be friendly. And then the conversation gets way too friendly and we're not really dialing in on the problem that the person is trying to solve. So I get stuck in this loop and then I recognize it when I'm already too late. How would you advise that I break this habit and really focus on the problem at hand and try to find a solution?
Yeah, I love this one because there's actually a study conducted. So it's not going to be my advice. It's going to be a massive study conducted. And I'm not sure if you read the book called The Challenger Sale. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
Well, on that one, you're going to see, and this was the study that I'm mentioning. And I love books that are based on that kind of research because, of course, it's more compelling. And but yeah, they basically studied the largest workforces, sales forces in the U.S. for decades. And they noticed, so this is to your point, that the most effective ones weren't the friendly ones, but the challenger ones. And challenge, of course, there's ways, and there's a fine line of being challenging, still friendly, still pleasant. And sometimes I think that's what people get wrong. But people, and even in the post-sale environment, clients appreciated that, okay, maybe he's not the most pleasant guy, but he's really getting me outside my comfort zone. He's helping me see a reality I wasn't seeing. And that takes, some challenging on their part, right? And it was like massively clear the most, or the top performing ones were these challenger type, and people weren't really. And it was in the literature before, or maybe in the 80s, that you have to be, and you probably remember this sleazy car. So that's why that example of this sleazy car salesman, and he tries to get into, and people lose trust with those, and actually they realized that. So that book is probably going to help you if you're still taking calls, which probably you shouldn't.
Is that your style of doing sales?
I had to incorporate it. I have to be honest. I was a little bit like yours, I thought, and that was probably, again, me being more older school. And I have to give props to snipers and NEPQ when I got exposed to that and the other methods, because most of them incorporate a lot of that literature, either NLP or the Challenger Sale. When you read that book, you're going to see a lot of common elements on all these frameworks or sales methods. But it made me more aware and conscious about, okay, be willing to ask tough questions, right? And I think a lot of salespeople have some trouble. There's, even if you do a little bit of NEPQ, there's a section called consequence question where you ask the prospect, what happens if they don't do? Like, what does their life look like if they don't, pursue these goals, or if they don't achieve that? And it's kind of a strong moment. And of course, you have to know when to use it, how to use it, who to use it. Some people get really turned off. So it requires some practice and tactic on how you use it, but it goes deeper. The deeper you can get, probably emotionally, with that prospect, then probably the better you're going to do. with the type of prospect that want that, right? If you're talking probably to a hedge fund manager, at some point you have to not just discuss the item at hand. And some people will push you towards that. There's ways around it, but to your, without digressing too much, to your earlier point, yeah, it's about the willingness to ask some hard questions sometimes and still be a trusting authority, a trustworthy advisor to them, if that makes sense. Kind of that doctor figure. Yeah. Does that answer that question?
Around why? Yeah, you did. And I want to add to that. My theory around why I'm the person that's always trying to be friendly is, we've never physically met in person, Luigi, but I'm 5'4". And growing up, I was always the smallest, littlest guy in any group of men. And I think it's survival instinct. I know that if I piss people off, head to head, I'm the one that's going to come out with the black eye. and therefore my instinct is always to make friends with everybody around me so that I don't have a physical conflict. Now, I think that kind of carried to online, where that personality got developed as a child. And now I'm always just trying to be friends with everybody. But I think that's hurting me a little bit in sales process. Would you be willing to, and if you say no, I'm fine with it, but just do a really quick role play with me about this challenger kind of tone? And if I ring in, then if we could just jam for 1 or 2 minutes, just so I could, myself and everybody listening can kind of experience what that feels like.
Sure. Yeah. You being the prospect, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what character I should play and what is it I'm interested in that you have, and then we'll role play for just a couple minutes.
Okay, you're a 9-to-5er trying to escape the grind, the rat race, and you're looking for passive income and spend more time with your family.
Okay, and what's my income right now, just so I kind of settle into this role?
Yeah, you're not doing bad yourself, but yeah, you're probably 120 a year, but just too many hours. And you're trying to escape that grind. I mean, money's probably not a problem. It's more about the time and freedom. Yeah.
Got it. And are you the face of the company, or are you somebody who I've never met yet or heard about?
Yeah, no, I'm just a sales guy.
You're the sales guy. Okay, got it. All right, ring, ring.
Hey, is this Ken?
Hey, yeah, this is Ken.
Hey, Ken, how's it going?
Hi. It's pretty good, thanks.
Cool. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So yeah, I mean, before we start the call, I want to ask, what was it about our content or what you've seen about us that made you book this call in the first place?
Yeah, I think I saw a bunch of these YouTube videos, and I think the idea sounds really cool. And there are some testimonials from other people who seem to be doing well. So I guess I'm just curious, maybe it could work for me. I don't know.
Okay. So just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been in the market, or curious, or just doing this type of research about what we're doing?
Oh, wow. I think I first saw, the content probably about 18 months ago. Yeah. It just popped up on my feed and then I subscribed.
Oh, okay. So 18 months until now. And if I may, in this period, was there something that kind of stopped you from either, taking more action about it, or anything that you think?
Well, there's a lot of people that make these kind of claims online. So I guess I'm cautious, right?
Okay. Yeah, totally fine. That makes sense. So walk me through a little bit about what you do, Ken, in your day-to-day work. Are you a full-time investor, or do you have a 9-to-5?
Yeah, I've got a job, and I got hired straight out of college, and I'm in middle management now. It's just like a paper manufacturing business. Okay.
And do you like that kind of work that you're doing at the moment?
I used to, but I'm over it. I don't think I want to keep doing this. Yeah.
Would you mind telling me why?
I think that when my income is just dictated by somebody just 1 or 2 steps above me, it really feels shitty, and I got to play all these politics to try to get a raise or even just keep my job.
Interesting. When you say feel shitty, though, let's stop there for a second. You said feel shitty. What does feel shitty mean for Ken Okazaki?
Yeah. Well, something that feels shitty is when, this new recruit gets the position I wanted just because she's got big boobs, and I know that my work is better than hers. that feels shitty.
Does that happen often recently? Or
Like twice for sure. Yeah.
okay. And besides feeling shitty, of course, did that have any other impact on your life? Maybe financially, emotionally? Your wife know about that limitation? Anything?
Well, the money, obviously, that promotion would have come with a raise, and that's something that, you know, in all fairness, it should have been me. So, but I'm just keeping my mouth shut because then I could lose the positions I've already got, and that feels shitty too.
And keeping your mouth shut, what consequence do you think is having on your either personal, on your behavior every day, or you're with your wife, the relationship? Is that having other impacts in your day-to-day relationships?
Yeah, I just get more pissed off inside. I don't know. I might get a bit irritable or edgy around my friends and family and stuff. I'd imagine that's what's happening. Maybe I'm not noticing it, but probably.
And we can go on and on. Sorry, but yeah, you see how I'm asking.
Yeah. You know what? I started, even though I'm playing a fictional character, I felt those, man. I kind of felt like you starting to poke like some soft spots. I'm just like, oh, that kind of hurts a little bit, and then just a slightly different angle.
In all fairness, I probably wouldn't do it that early in the conversation. I know we're trying, and you wanted to see, how to challenge it. That's why I kind of jumped a little ahead in the process. Usually, a little more rapport at the beginning. What do you do? And it's not advisable to go that deep so early in the conversation, right? So you have to have a few minutes.
Demonstration. I think you did a great job, and
thanks.
Now I understanding the feeling you want to give the person, and I'm gonna watch this back, and that was cool. Thank you.
No, my pleasure, man. Yeah. And anytime you want to go further in this, of course, you know where to find me. But yeah.
The fictional Ken will buy the fictional service, and we'll be off to and I'll sign you a fictional. I might pay you some real money, and then you got to make up something to give me. Luigi, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Now, if somebody's really struggling in getting wrapping their head around, or actually converting well with high ticket sales, then do you suggest that they buy a book, get a course, watch online stuff, or just do tons and tons of reps? Like, what do you think is, if there's a bottleneck but they can't figure out what it is, like, how do we improve that?
Yeah, as a person who's selling, or as an influencer business owner,
like general advice to anybody who's listening, including myself. If you're stuck in the sales process and it's not going well, like, first course of action, do you need a mentor to have a look at all your stuff and pinpoint it? Or should you self-study, or should you just grind it until the experience will help you, get through this slump?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't, I would always suggest, and I'm a big proponent of mentoring, right? And again, it goes back to that phrase I used earlier: whose 10,000 hours can you borrow/buy, right? And I think that's massive, right? Again, also in line with who, not how. In terms of who, there are so many, and I've noticed, and I've been mentored by so many people, that I realize I have a style that works with certain frameworks or method, or even person. Like, there are some coaches that are great in what they do, and they have a great method of selling, but I probably don't align with them, personality wise, right? Or my focus. Some of them probably are more catered to lower ticket programs, or just coaching programs, and not investment related offers that I'm trying to explore more. So it will, of course, depend on the person's goals and desires, but yeah, definitely get exposed to, and there's so much literature, and you can start with the classics, and even this book, like The Challenger Sell, that would be a great one. Oren Klaff, I love his style. I think I resonate a lot with Oren Klaff. You're familiar with Oren, right?
No, not really.
Yeah. Oren Klaff, yeah, he's big in deal making type of sales. He calls himself more of a deal maker. Oh, the Flip the Script, his book is best. It's a great start as well. And he adds, my style of selling actually has been a mix of some NEPQ, but a lot of Oren Klaff. So I kind of created my own style that I think works very well with these investment offers. I'm trying to expand into the investment fund world, so I'm getting exposed to, because actually I noticed, and I'm working with, I joined a big mastermind in the fund space, and I'm part of the group now. It's a very high caliber people, and I've noticed they're great operators. And I think that's a key challenge for, I mean, just like you said, you're a great filmmaker, video editing guy. You do film. That's your thing. And you're a great, I've seen you doing sets. You're a great person. You're a great communicator. But a lot of people, most people lack that skill, or maybe they're introvert. They're not comfortable speaking to strangers. And I think it was actually surprising to see that high caliber people that need so much help, because I'm sitting there in their pitches. So they have to pitch these funds, right? Real estate, syndications, hedge funds, you name it, all sorts of deals. And yeah, it's surprisingly unskilled way to do it, right? I mean, there's no method, there's no ways to process to approach it, right? So I think everyone, for their own sake, get exposed to these guys, Oren Klaff, the former FBA guy. I don't remember his name now, but great book as well.
Never Split the Difference guy, right?
Never Split the Difference, yeah. Oh, I know. I read him so many times. Because again, these are tools for life, right? I always say we're always selling something. Like, where do we go for dinner tonight with your wife, right? I mean, it's persuasion, I would say. Robert Cialdini, The Art of Persuasion. I don't remember the exact name, but a great book on persuasion. It's too long and a little too academic. But yeah, persuasion as a concept is something that could be such a game changer for anyone, actually, and not only in business, in politics, in any endeavor that you're involved in. So, yeah.
Agreed. Thank you for that. So what I'm going to do is have my producer go and look up all these books, and we'll link them below. If you're listening on the podcast, they'll be in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, they'll be in the description. And we're almost out of time, but I'd like to ask you, Luigi, what's next for you? What do you see as, I think that the current thing you're doing, I feel like it's setting you up for a bigger ultimate goal. Maybe it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years into the future. But what is it? What are you working toward?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think one of the main challenges for most sales professionals is money's good, and you get kind of addicted to that dopamine of, okay, I have a call and this could translate into commissions, right? And I think that's great. The only problem is that it lacks that element of equity building for the future, right? So you're usually selling for someone else. And my focus now is either, first I want to help. Literally, I was extremely surprised to see how much these people in the fund space need actual sales processes or salespeople. And there's, of course, regulatory aspects. If you want to sell for a fund, you need to either be the fund owner or be registered, do your Series 7, some SEC compliance that we don't need to get here. But I know, and I've seen firsthand the need for that. And that, for me, is going to be a goal now, to become more and more involved in sales, which is what I do and I love, with the element of equity building or asset appreciation, either through funds, either through M&A. There's also a big need in M&A. When you're in M&A, you're selling yourself as a buyer. So it's kind of the inverse process, because there's more money and investors than actually good deals or good companies out there, right? So you're selling, but to become a buyer, and you're selling yourself in the notion of why you should take over the company. So that's kind of where I'm involved at the moment, and I'm super excited. It's going to be, I'm going to 2 massive events this year. I've been to one, and I'm going to 2 live events now that I'm part of a mastermind that are related to this space. And I think there's going to be, big opportunities there.
All right. Amazing. Luigi, thank you so much for laying out kind of what you're thinking. I see that there's a lot of different moving parts, and I really wish you all the best in getting that like melded together and getting it to work in the direction you want to go. And I want to close this off with just asking you one last question. And it's this: how do you see artificial intelligence affecting anything that you do, either now or in the upcoming years?
Wow. It's here to stay, right? And it's going to do crazy things that we can't even imagine. I've seen practical applications. For example, some sales reps that work with me now, and let's say we're onboarding a new client, and they use, we've kind of installed a quick process with Claude. You're familiar with Claude, right? And just to gather, go to all the social, you post the links and gather all information about that client, for example, or a prospect. You can do that, right? And about that company, about their competitors. And in a fraction of the time, of course, you can have massive quality information about that person you're going to talk with in a second. I mean, that's just one example I'm trying to give you. I've seen appointment setters doing setting, and they are AI. They're not a real human, for example, and that turns into a sales call. So it's exciting, a little scary. I don't know. That's probably going to get a little too philosophical, but I think it's going to be more of a tool for the guys that don't resist the technology and become adopters of it. Hopefully, we're not going to be relevant as humans, at least in the near future. But we're gonna, I think the differentiation is gonna be who uses it more. And I know you use it super well, way better than I use actually. I've just been dabbling with these tools recently for sales at least, and I just seen wow. I mean, they just get better and better, and it's just mind blowing.
All right, thank you for sharing that. And we'll wrap this up by saying, guys, please do go check out all the links down below. And if, Luigi, somebody wants to contact you about anything to do with, investments, sales, or the things that you're an expertise at, what would be the best way for them to find you?
Best one would be LinkedIn, actually. If they can, hit me out there. I'm usually more active there. So, yeah.
All right, we'll drop a link down below. So if you're on the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're on YouTube watching this, look at the description. Please do look this guy up. He's a really great guy. And I really did enjoy the time we did spend together in working together on the projects we did. And I'll wrap this up by saying, for everybody listening, I'll see you next week.
No hustle, worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fading, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.